This is the Pharmaverse Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pietrack, engaging leaders from the pharma universe. Hello and welcome to the Pharmaverse Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pietrack. And if you're a leader or an aspiring leader in the pharmaceutical industry, you are in the right place because we interview the brightest stars from throughout the pharma universe, and today's guest would certainly fit that description. We're joined by the founder and CEO of NOBiotics, Jiten Pant. NOBiotics is an RTP-based company exploring the therapeutic properties of nitric oxide, and Jiten is such an amazing individual. I can't wait for you to meet him. So Jiten, welcome to the Pharmaverse.
Thank you, Michael. It was a wonderful introduction, and I always believe that the beauty lies in the eyes of beholder. So the way you capture someone also tells who you are as a person. Based on our previous conversations and the way we have interacted and the warmth and kindness you have shown to me, it only tells me that you are a very good person yourself. So thank you so much.
I have you fooled. No, I appreciate that. Appreciate the warm sentiments. Educate us on what's going on at NOBiotics. What are you guys developing there?
Yes, so good question. So NOBiotics, as the name suggests, it starts with NO, which is nitric oxide. And we are utilizing the therapeutic properties of nitric oxide in tissue engineering, biomedical devices, and therapeutics. Now, the company started just 7 months ago, back in June 2024, but the story goes back to 2011. When I was working in a biopharmaceutical company in India called Biocon. And during my time there, I was working on some therapeutics which are now FDA approved for breast cancer and psoriasis, and they are first of their kinds. But while I was doing that, I also realized, because I was so low in the hierarchy of doing the work that we are doing, that I did not have much say in the kind of work we are doing, the process we are approaching. So that was the time I realized that, I heard a famous quote that time that says, if you want to change something, go to the top and change it. And that was the seed of me started thinking about becoming a leader in the industry and how I can make the changes, how I can do things the way I want to do things. So I have limited resources. I did not have much context. I decided that I wanted to come to US and do my research here. And the reason for that was a lot of leaders whom I found in the company had their postdoc and PhD in US and Europe. So I knew it looked like a first logical step for me to try. So I started applying for PhD in 2011, and man, it took me 4 years of rejection. And it did not look as simple as I thought it's going to be. I thought I'm working in a big company, I have the right references, I have good grades, and I should get through. But I did not know what is GRE, what is TOEFL, what is IELTS, how to write these tests, how to prepare for this test. No one around me was preparing for these tests. And moreover, I did not have the money to go for coachings and all. I know that all my savings are going to be consumed in just buying a ticket. Forget about, finding living expenses. I could barely afford a plane ticket. So that's where the journey started. Eventually, 4 years later, I got into a PhD in University of Georgia.
Go Dogs.
And yes, good.
Right here, man.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Go Dogs.
So I'll learn about your journey at UGA later, but let me continue this one. So what we did there was I got exposed to nitric oxide. And when I got exposed to nitric oxide, I was blown away by it. But we faced one challenge. The challenge is nitric oxide is a gas. The good part is nitric oxide is produced in human body also. So we thought, how do we use a gas in creating therapeutics, in creating biomedical device, in creating regenerative medicines? That was the challenge. So my PhD was focused on converting a gas into a synthetic molecule that is stable at room temperature, that can be transported. And when you put it in the body, it starts releasing gas, nitric oxide gas, again, pretty much like how your body does it. So we call this approach as biomimetic approach. We are imitating what your body does naturally. And that way you can harness the goodness of nitric oxide without being bothered about the side effects. And as a result, my PhD resulted in 25 publications. We have 5 patents. And the question was, okay, academically, it's a good pat on your back. You have done well. Now, where do you take it? So the next logical step was to start a company. So I co-founded a company back in 2019, right after finishing my PhD in 2018. And that resulted in funding from NIH, CDC, we got contract from DoD also. And then there was some changes in my personal life and I decided to pursue another career. So there was a pause on nitric oxide work. And we'll talk about it some other day, but I understand we have limited time. So what I did after that was I went to University of Michigan after that, and from there I started my industrial journey. I got hired at Caron Products and then became the global director of R&D there. I was taking care of their US and UK unit, and I was also doing their distribution in India, their product distribution in India. And then one day I was offered a CEO position in another company. Now, after I received CEO position, the dream of going back to nitric oxide clicked again. I said, I know the science and I've learned all these commercialization steps. I know how to distribute, how to market, how to, how to take one idea from its very primitive stage to its final stage. And putting all these experiences together that started in 2011, 14 years later, it made much sense that I do something of my own and put all the pieces together. And that's how NOBiotics was born.
What a great story. And I'm hoping it's just the beginning of a major success story. But I want to focus in right on nitric oxide because I'm very interested in this. Mm-hmm. I know you've studied this extensively. You talked about your University of Georgia experience. Valedictorian of your PhD program. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned you have a couple patents in nitric oxide. And I watched an incredible TED talk that you gave on nitric oxide. What are some of the key findings that you have found with nitric oxide over the years?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. You have done your research well, so it makes it much more easier for me to explain. But I'm also mindful that while two of us come from a pharma and biopharma background, a lot of people who will listen to this may not come from the same science background, so I'll avoid using technical jargons in answering. So keeping it simple, first thing we did was we synthesized few nitric oxide donors that can imitate what our body does naturally. Now we took it to next level by testing them on animal models, by testing them on cellular models. And then we saw that based on those testing, what are different applications where we can use it for the benefit of human health. So the applications that we focused on were based on heart diseases, lung diseases, blood-borne diseases, for example, sepsis. Infection was one of the major areas that we focused on. Wound healing was another area we focused on. And in a nutshell, without getting into details, the results were that we were able to cut down infection up to 4 months, maintaining 5 log reduction, which is huge. We compared it to antibiotics, silver nanoparticles, and other antibacterial material, and we found our material to be superior in nature. That led to those 25 publications and the patents that we have. And we did the testing on animals after validating it in the cellular system. When we did the testing on animals, we found similar results. And that was also the foundation of the confidence that we had in the technology. We knew that if we'll take it to market, it will be well received, it will be well funded, and that's why we had huge success back in 2019 when we started that company. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that NOBiotics will soon come to see those days where it will be a household name. We'll be developing technologies where we can benefit the patients and their families and create affordable medicines just by taking inspiration from nature, from our own body that heals it so beautifully.
Yeah, we're wonderfully made, aren't we? Now, nitric oxide itself is amazing. What are the next big milestones for NOBiotics?
Okay, so good question. So like I said, the company is just 7 months old, right? So I'll first talk about what have we achieved in the last 7 months, what was our mindset 7 months ago, and how we are taking it to the next level. So when we started the company, I knew that there are 3 major things that I have to achieve first. One is to have the right team, attract the right talent for whatever limited resources and money I have, because I was all in. I left a very highly paying job and the company is surviving on founders capital right now, right? So you have to attract people who share the same philosophy, who want to help patient and who do not mind waiting for that big reward and they're ready to give their efforts in the present, knowing the future is bright. So that was first thing. We are on the right track in progressing there. We already have talents from some of the best places. We have scientists from Cleveland Clinic. We have scientists from Harvard Medical School. We have scientists who have previously worked in bigger pharmaceutical companies. There are industry leaders who are mentoring us. These are people who have worked in big companies like Thermo Fisher, have 25 to 40 years of experience, have been in leadership positions. So they are our mentor. Right now, in terms of collaboration, we are currently collaborating with Harvard Medical School, and then University of Michigan, University of Alabama, and University of California. So there are researchers from these big places, very educated, very experienced, who are helping us bring our vision to the next level. So that was one part, which is attracting the right talent. The second part is getting exposed and getting traction early on, so that when it's the right time, your short-term goals are fulfilling your long-term aspirations. So this is where getting guidance from the mentors that I just talked about comes into picture. And then once they become your network, their network also becomes your network. So I've been blessed and grateful that these mentors have seen what we believe in. Even though they do not come from nitric oxide background, they believe in the potential of the technology we are developing, and they believe in helping patients and their families. So they are advising us. And then third thing is the capital. Biotech is such an expensive industry where without capital, you can dream and aspire as big as you want, but this is a capital-driven industry. So we understand that this is where we have submitted multiple federal grants early on. Within 1 month of starting the company, we got our project pitch accepted at NSF, and just day before yesterday, we got accepted by NIH for commercialization training. So these are the early seeds. I would call it a drop in the ocean, but a drop in the right kind of ocean. Like we are building the company brick by brick, and some of the fundings are pending result in 2 to 3 months. And I am very positive that somewhere around early next year or at the end of this year, I'll have good news to share with you, Michael, and maybe that would be the time to do another podcast where we can share the news with the rest of the world.
Oh yeah, we definitely want to keep track of what's going on there. And we do have a lot of venture capitalists, a lot of private equity people that do watch the show and listen to the podcast. And so, maybe you'll trip their trigger there, because nitric oxide, what you're doing there is really impressive. But the Pharmaverse is a leadership podcast. So I want to transition to some leadership questions. Quickly, how would you describe your leadership philosophy?
Okay, so I believe leadership is a mindset. And I also believe, and that belief came very early on, because I was born and I grew up in the kind of environment that was not very conducive to what would make an ideal leader. But at the same time, I would call it was conducive because of the adversity it has. If you look at the story of anyone who is able to break barriers, it was because they were exposed to adverse conditions. So the question is it a good thing or a bad thing to have the conducive environment or not? And I think the answer lies in your belief system, in your mindset. There are people who do not have right kind of conditioning, right kind of environment, and they turn out to be leaders without title. There's a book on this by Robin Sharma, Leader Without Title. And it talks about how you don't need a formal title to lead your industry or your personal life, your professional life, your relationships, right? So early on, one thing that I learned from my father was, and I did not know this term back then, but I know it now, he was a leader without title. He was, by his job, he was making less than $1 per day. That was his salary. He has 4 kids. He was taking care of his siblings. He was a runaway, but for the right reasons. He left his home because he wanted to study more. His father and him has some conflict, so he ran away. But of course, when he ran away, the financial responsibility came on him, and then he has to also take care of his siblings. What he did was he tried many odd jobs, and then he succeeded and failed, and eventually he gave us all his struggles were the founding stone for us as a kid. Like, all my siblings are very well educated. It's 4 of us. 3 of us have PhDs, including myself, and then another sister has done her MBA. We did our study on scholarship for the most part of our life. So I would call him, and we became successful in our life because he was a leader without title. We knew that nothing is an obstacle as long as you have the mindset, as long as you do not accept uh, accept the limitations, and as long as you believe in the power of mindset, you can take your life anywhere. You can turn your life 360 degree. And then there are people with title. And there are people who have the CEO title, vice president, president. When we talk about that kind of leadership with a title, I personally believe even people who have title can only be good leaders if they were leaders even without the title. Meaning, if they have that mindset that does not give up, if they have gone through struggles themselves, that's when they have empathy, that's when they have kindness, that's when they have perspective, that's when they don't boss around, and that's when they give people benefit of doubt. So for people who have titles, I learned, and this is what I learned during my time at Caron Products. Someone called Bob Daughtry, he passed on his philosophy to me. He was my reporting manager. So he taught me this thing after I got promoted to global director, because that was a change in my career and I was anxious. So I had a title, but I was questioning if I'm ready to lead, right? So he told me, Jiten, you have all the ingredients to be a leader, because a good leader has three main things. One thing is, a good leader has vision. This person who is a leader has farsightedness. They can see far beyond the present struggles. They can look into the future and they can connect dots forward. That is one thing. Second thing is, a good leader with a title enables people who work under him or her. Like, you empower people. You do not just show them a vision, but you empower them so that they can bring your vision to reality. You move forward. You do not just load them with responsibility, but you empower them. You enable them. So a good leader enables people who work under him. And third thing, and most important thing that people have misunderstood is motivation. And I'll take it to the next level. Not just motivation, but a good leader should be able to inspire, not just motivate with lip service, but inspire by leading by example. Like, you become such a good role model because you have created so many reference points so that people can follow you. And that's when you can inspire. So vision, empowerment, and inspiration is what makes a good leader with a title.
I really like that. And I like the leading by example, because in my business, that is really key. This episode is brought to you by K. Bassman International, the leader in pharma and biotech recruiting. When pharma executives need to make critical hires, they go to the experts at K. Bassman, pharma's one-source staffing solution. Visit kbic.com. Now back to the episode. You also mentioned something during our pre-show discussion about diversity and how you sort of see it as in a different way than a lot of people do. Do you mind sharing some of those thoughts about diversity?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a concept in India, we call it Vasudev Kutumbakam, which means word is my home. So this is the philosophy I grew up with. Like I said, my father, he ran away from a village and he settled down. He did multiple odd jobs. He moved from one place to another place like a nomad, if I can put it in crude term. But what he learned from his experiences was this, that word is my home. I am exploring. And in the process of exploration, I'll make some right decisions and some wrong decisions. But everything is a part of exploration. Once you understand this, your whole way of seeing the word becomes something else. So when I grew up, I knew word is my home. I was born in a small village in India. My father was not earning very well. We struggled to have the education, so we relied on fellowships. But what it did was, when you are a kid, the beautiful thing about being a kid is your dreams do not know any bounds. Your logics cannot stop you. Your emotions are so empowering that the logic that how will someone who is born in a village, whose parents are not educated, can become a company CEO in USA one day. You do not have those belief systems. As a kid, you believe everything is possible. And the reason for that is you have empowering beliefs. And those beliefs come from so if you have good reference points, you have good belief system. So in my case, that philosophy of Vasudev Kudambakam followed. So I got my education in one city and then moved to another city for job, and then went to Germany, and then finally came to USA and settled down here. And with all these experiences, also faced, so life is not a fairy tale. There are all kinds of people in the world. And when you expose yourself, you meet good people, but you also meet bad people. So I have also been exposed to racism where people will judge you based on the color of your skin. Right? There's an incident, I will not name the country, but I was in X country where I sat down in a bus, and this guy sitting next to me, he immediately stood up and he left his seat just because I was sitting there, just because I do not look like him. And there are people I have met in another country. I would not name the country here, but the point is this person is asking me to go back to where I am from. Okay, so you meet these kinds of people also, but there is a lesson to learn here. The lesson is not to become bitter, but the lesson is kindness, diversity, equity, inclusion. All these principles are not something that you ask for. These are deeds that you give to the world. When you talk about kindness, when you talk about love, when you talk about leadership, these are the things you should be giving to others instead of just waiting and expecting others to be good. So it should not be a reaction that you give based on their action. It should be the action that you give to the world, no matter what their reaction is. In doing so, you will still meet people who would not reflect back the way you expect them to. That's where you set the boundaries. That's where you say, these people with positive mindset, empowering mindsets are welcome in my company and in my life. And this is where I draw the line, where I exclude toxic people. So when I talk about kindness, I also would want people to not burn themselves in the process of being kind. That healthy boundary where you have a zone of acceptance, but you also know where to keep yourself away from. So a long answer to your short question, but I think diversity, equity, inclusion for me is a virtue that you should live by, a virtue which should give people benefit of doubt regardless of their upbringing and their culture. And when you think that somebody is crossing that line where they are being disrespectful, regardless of where they come from, you regardless of their title, just because someone is your boss does not give them the right to abuse you. But also, just because someone is lower your title does not give you the right to abuse them. That's where you draw the healthy boundary. And this is what diversity, equity, and inclusion means to me.
Really profound, Jiten. Thank you so much for sharing that, and a very refreshing take on all that. Now, I know we talked about your upbringing. I think that's really an amazing thing. And the more I've been learning about leaders and interviewing leaders on this podcast, the more I realize their upbringing shapes them. You've spoken about your dad, the less than $1 a day, that you come from this small village. Anything else in your upbringing that really shapes your leadership style?
Yeah. So like I said, I grew up in a very small town, and then I have very limited reference points. So I early on, first thing that I learned based on my father's experience was you should only pick up empowering beliefs in your life. Anything can be true, and you can prove anything to be true, but the only truth that matters is the one that you believe in. There are parallel truths. People confuse opinions with truth, and we have a tendency that if I believe in something and you don't believe in something, you are not accepted in my life. We label them as right or wrong. But there could be multiple rights. There could be multiple parallel realities, right? There could be multiple parallel right opinions who can be completely different from each other. So one thing that I learned from my father is, if you have to believe in something and you know that nothing is true and nothing is false, it's just about your belief system, why don't you pick up beliefs that are empowering? So his empowering beliefs were, first thing that I learned from my father is, you can be a leader even without a title. We just talked about that. Second thing was, money is only an obstacle if you let it to be. And it won't be an obstacle if you do not let it to be an obstacle. So I knew I have to rely on education, because education, if I could get fellowship, I can be somebody who is employed in XYZ company, or I can start my company because I don't have a godfather and my father has limited resources. So I knew education would be my go-to way. And that came from the fact that It's another version of leading without a title at early age, right? For me, that philosophy that the money is not going to stop me and my education can take me to the next level is a mini version of leading without a title, which is right for that age. And then third thing is, as long as you do not give up on yourself, you can achieve whatever you set your mind to be. And if it comes to giving something, it's okay to give your material dreams or external success, but do not give up on yourself as an individual. Do not give up on yourself. Give up on external pursuits, but never on yourself. So that was that's how my childhood shaped my leadership philosophy. But there are other things also. When you're a kid, you have a brain that is not fully developed. You think more emotionally, and the reason for that is lies in the evolution. When you grow up, when you are an infant, your emotional brain is in during organogenesis. Your amygdala, which is your emotional brain, develops much before your logical brain, which is your neocortex and cortex, develops. So it's inevitable that you will think, no matter how much you pretend to be logical. Every human being is primarily driven by their emotions and then by their logic, because this is how evolution has designed us. So as a kid, your logical brain has not even formed. You're only utilizing your emotional brain to learn, and in doing so, you will make some mistakes. You will learn some wrong things, right? And you will develop a personality that is hard to change. And then when we grow up, we ask ourselves this question: why am I this way? I cannot change. This is my strength. This is my weakness. This is who I am. But you can change all of that, because now as an adult, you also have a logical brain. So the answer does not lie in replacing your emotional brain with your logical brain. The answer lies in understanding that you have two different kinds of brains. They process the signal differently. Your goal should be how to develop this interconnection between your logical brain and your emotional brain. How do you do that? You learn it from your experiences, but you will have limited experiences when you are a kid. And by the time you are 70, 80 years, you have more experiences. Shall you wait for those experiences to learn everything, or shall you learn from other people's experiences is the question. So people who are wise, they decide to learn from other people's experiences because they know they cannot wait for 80 years just to realize simple truths about life, right? So how do you learn from other experiences? If you are blessed, you have the company, you are born in a certain state, place, with parents who expose you to these places. If you do not have those privileges, what do? You pick up books written by all these great minds of all times. There are people who have captured the wisdom of their time, and some of these things are timeless. There are things that were true 200 years ago and they are true today. You'll still benefit from them. So you pick up these books, you learn from these books, and that's where you wipe out all the bad things that you learn as a part of your emotional learning when you were not mature and you were learning wrong things. Like anger is one of those things. Impulsiveness is one of those things. Understanding, the unfortunate part is our whole life depends on the way we think, but nobody teaches us how to think. Right? So once you realize this thing, and once you realize how thinking is the root cause of everything that you can become or you are, you will start learning how to think. So my lifelong goal right now is learning how to think. So I am picking up books, I am reading books that are teaching me how to think, because I know once I learn how to think well, everything else will fall in place.
Yeah, I love that. And that's true. It's true. And a lot of leaders continually learn. They read books. They're always reading books. They're always quoting other people. They're interested in that. And I don't know if this next concept is something you picked up in one of those books, but you were explaining to me how success and failure is not linear. Can you explain it? You explain it better than I would.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. And this is something which is very close to my heart. So I believe before you decide and put your mind to success or failure, you have to first define what is success and failure. And you have to also understand that there is no absolute definition of success and failure. You define what does success mean to you. Maybe to a 4-year-old kid, getting that toy from XYZ shop is success. Maybe there is somebody who will find success in raising $50 million for their company, whereas there is another person who finds success in where his or her father has given them 5 minutes of their office hours. And you define success for yourself first. And once you have defined success, your only goal is, and you define success within the practicality. You define short-term success in a way that is feeding your long-term success. So you do reverse engineering. So you say, I want to be here, and today if I do these things, I can be there. For example, I want to age in a healthy manner. So I have to exercise today, not when I'm 70. I have to start exercising when I'm 35. Like, this is how you are shaping, and that is success. Because you wanted to age healthy, you started exercising early on, and so you will age healthy. And there might be things that may not fall in place, but at least directionally you did the right thing. There are things beyond your control, and that will happen to you. That's where the factor that success is not linear comes into picture. So you may aspire to be somewhere. I may aspire my company or myself to reach somewhere, but that may not necessarily happen. Just because I'm taking step 1 does not mean step 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, everything will align in place. No, because success is not linear. It's like, that game that we used to play as a kid, snakes and ladders. So you go a few steps up, and then the snake bites you, and then you fall down again. And then you roll the die, and then you go up again by few steps, and then you fall down again. So there is a mountain and valley, and then mountain and valley, and this is the cycle. People, forget about people. If I believe success is linear, I'm setting myself to tragedies and miseries and lot of heartaches. I'm going to have a very painful life if I fantasize success and if I believe that success is going to be linear. But once I accept that there will be failures, and failure is the only way to success, the failure is not as disappointing now. You stop calling them failure. You start labeling them as temporary defeats. You do not confuse them with labeling yourself as a failure. And that acceptance is very important. So in science, when we have to reach a results, we create a hypothesis. The hypothesis says that these are my expected outcomes, and if I do A, the cause X will have effect Y. Like, you relate the cause and effect together, right? So you form a hypothesis, and then you say these are the set of experiments that will validate my hypothesis. And then you say, if these experiments fail, these are alternative strategies that I'm going to do. Apply the same principle in your life. Decide your hypothesis, write down the experiments that are going to do to reach those hypotheses, and come up with plan B that you are going to pursue if your hypothesis does not reach the conclusion you thought it will reach. And that's how I lead my life, and that's one thing that I can tell people. Do not make someone else's success. Do not make someone else's definition of success yours. Come up with your own definition of success and just pursue that.
Yeah, that's great. And again, everything we've heard so far is wisdom beyond your years. I mean, you're a 35-year-old CEO, valedictorian of your PhD program, all in your second language. Also, you're an author of a book in a second language. It's called The Fool Who Ate His Hunger. Tell us a little bit about the book and how we can apply it to leadership.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your kind words. So the book, A Fool Who Ate His Hunger, I took 8 years to write that book. It started back in 2016, and then by 2024 is when I have a draft that I believe the word can read, the draft that I can be proud of. So it was published on Kindle Vella. So this book it's a coming of age story. This is about a 17-year-old boy who ran away from his village, and then this boy falls in love with someone. This boy has aspiration, but this boy falls in love with someone, and then he has his family. And then it also covers the conflict, the love, the compassion that he has with his own parents, with his own siblings, with his wife, with his kids. If you see, this is the life story of every individual. You have personal pursuits, we have professional pursuits, and they kind of talk to each other. We divide our life as personal life and professional life, but there is no differentiation. You are just one individual who is compartmentalizing different things that you are doing in your life. So the way your relationship works are going to have an impact in your professional life, and vice versa, right? Your professional failure and success will have an impact on your personal life. Your personal relationship will decide how good do you feel when you go at work and how well you perform there, right? So this whole book is about understanding, again, that success and failures are not a linear path. Because a human life is impacted by so many variables, you are going to feel different as you age. Your definition of success and failure will change as you age, and then your goals keep shifting from one place to another. So few learnings that you can have from this book is, one, success is not linear. Success is basically like a snakes and ladders game where you will go up and then you will fall and then you will go up and then you will fall again. Second thing that you can learn from this book is resilience. It's to learn that it's not over until you win. And as long as you do not give up, you are successful. So not giving up is success. Success is not a materialistic outcome of having some title and some kind of money. It could very well be within the definition of success, but ultimate success is the resilience that you have. And then the final thing that you will learn from this is emotional intelligence. You will learn from this book is how your emotions drive the way you put logic into things, and vice versa. How your actions can change your mood and how your mood can change your actions. So I knew that it was going to be a very complex message. So I came up with the idea. I created a story where people can have fun while they are learning these things through life of someone, instead of putting it as a self-help book, which I am a big admirer. I read a lot of self-help books, so nothing against them. But I wanted to have a wide cast, and then I thought if I'll narrate it in the form of a story, it will resonate with people of all ages and it can reach more places. So that's the story. I am excited to share it with the world.
Awesome. Well, Jiten, we're all out of time for this episode, but I'm sure that our audience feels the same way that I do about you. Impressed. How can we follow you in NOBiotics?
Okay, so the easiest way to follow us would be LinkedIn. We have LinkedIn page, and then people can follow me on LinkedIn. They can also connect with me on YouTube. I'm not a YouTuber, but I post some stories on YouTube from time to time. So yeah, LinkedIn and YouTube are the two platforms where we can connect. And one day I want to connect with the people through my book. I wish that there will be a day that some of the listeners who are listening today will be holding the book A Fool Who Ate His Hunger in their hands, and these messages will resonate again.
Exactly how you feel. Well, that does wrap up this episode. Jiten, thank you so much for your time and your insights. Thank you for being a guest on the Pharmaverse.
Thank you for inviting me, Michael. It's wonderful knowing you and learning about your journey and your podcast.
Well, that wraps up another episode. We have many great leaders lined up for you. So please follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening to this installment of the Pharmaverse.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for joining us on the Pharmaverse Podcast. Make sure you subscribe below so you don't miss any leadership insights. Like and comment. I would love to hear from you. We'll see you on the next episode of Pharmaverse.